show, everyone. Today we have a truly inspiring guest joining us. Rhonda Joliffe from Bismarck, North Dakota is not only a fierce advocate, but a trailblazer in the field of women's health. Through her dedication and unwavering commitment, Rhonda has made a profound impact in her community, championing wellness and empowering women to take charge of their health. We are so grateful to have her here today to share her story, her wisdom, and a little insight into what keeps her going. Let's dive in and get to know the incredible Rhonda Joliffe.
Well,
hi.
Well, that was a great introduction.
Right?
Was that me?
That's you. That's you. I always use the word pioneer when I'm talking about Rhonda. When I tell people, whether it's struggling or, struggling with being a female and the things that come along with that, I always say you need to go see Rhonda. She's a pioneer in women's health.
That's interesting you say that, because back in the early 2000s, I took this 2-year course on sacred contracts, and part of it was figuring out your archetypes. And the pioneer did come up for me for my archetypes. Yeah. So that is funny. You call me a pioneer because I haven't used the word for a long time.
I say it all the time, and I often wonder. It might be a hard question to answer, but do you feel like a pioneer in your field? Do you feel like you were a trailblazer, especially in our community?
Very much, especially at the time I was doing it, because at the time I was doing it, there was nothing, there was nobody out there doing that. So back then I did. Now I don't feel like I'm as much of a pioneer anymore, because what I'm doing, a lot more people are doing, and it's great. And thank God.
Right.
So right now in my lifetime, I don't consider myself a pioneer right now. I was back then.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm in a different settled place here in this, wonderful age that I'm at. It's a good place to be.
Do you feel that? Have you felt that about every age?
I have. Yeah. I have. No age has bothered me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no age has bothered me. The age that I'm at now, and I'm in my 60s now, which, I hate saying that because people think of it as old, but now I keep saying it because I want people to realize that just because you're in your 60s doesn't mean you don't have anything more to give. I really feel I'm just really settled in, and I still have a lot to give, and I did a lot of soul searching these last couple of years on what my life is and what it's about, and just had a lot of time to think, and continuing to work is a really important thing for me personally, not for everybody at my age. A lot of people are retiring and asking me when I'm going to retire, and it's just really not in my vocabulary, because I just really feel that the experiences I've brought with me are really is why I'm where I'm at today.
Right.
And I want to keep sharing it.
Right. That's all right. And I think you still, it's funny because you see people retire and everyone handles it differently and everyone does different things. Mm-hmm. But I see a lot of people in retirement declining.
I know.
So I think working in whatever that looks like to you personally, but some kind of work or some kind of contribution is so important.
I agree. I do a talk a couple times a month now on stress hormones and health. And one of the slides is purpose. And the purpose is such a big thing. I'm working with women for many years now. I realized that at retirement, I've noticed a few things when women retire, because I was doing so many annual exams. I'd see them every year, same time of year. And sometimes they were sick, sometimes they were well, all of that. And I saw some women for many years and still am. And what I noticed is some people that retire the next year, they look 5 years younger or they look 5 years older. And those that look 5 years older, I've determined, are those that really didn't have a purpose, didn't know what they were going to do with retirement, and weren't doing anything that was purposeful to them. And so that word purpose, I think if you have a purpose in your retirement, you're leaving a job that you did not love or create, or were just in it, to help your family. I think leaving that job is okay if you have another purpose. And then that's when the women that look 5 years younger, because it was their job that's them out. And it was their job that created the stressors for them. And now they're doing what they love and they actually are fulfilling their purpose. So to me, the word purpose is one of my favorite words.
Mm-hmm. We were just talking about purpose a little bit ago. I think it was with you, where it was a boss and, employees talking about it. And he's like, I don't know if I feel like I have my purpose. And I was like, I don't think it has to be as big as what everyone says. Like, it might be, I just make people smile, or I'm humorous. Right. But I think we sometimes put something really big on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Something really big. And I even say, like, at retirement, a lot of women are excited to spend more time with their grandkids. And that is their purpose. And that's a great purpose. And it is. It's one of my purpose. I love my grandkids too, but I still have other purpose in my work and my career. And so I'm not retiring.
Good.
As of yet.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I guess based on that, maybe not everyone knows what you do and your business. So why don't you tell us about that a little bit?
So I was a nurse for, 12 or 13 years, went back to school and became a nurse practitioner in 1997. And I was very interested in holistic health way back then. There was nothing really around, and the education was even tough on it because we didn't have the internet back then. Mm-hmm. Yes, I worked in the day we did not have the internet.
So different. Oh my God.
So I literally was getting journals. If people remember, you had to purchase journals and they came to your... So I would purchase alternative medicine journals and all of that. And that's what I started studying. And then in the early 2000s, I leaned towards functional medicine. And the reason for that was very science-based. And I felt like if I was going to have any credibility as a nurse practitioner, I really needed to stay science-based. And so functional medicine is very scientific. There's science behind everything that I do. And so that's why I've stayed grounded in that. I do believe in so many more things that don't have a lot of scientific basis behind them, different forms of healing, and I believe in all of that. I really believe that everybody needs to find their way when it comes to healing. And so in the early years, I used the word mind-body medicine, and that's what I practice. So mind-body spirit medicine, sorry. And so I always, in my mind, when I see somebody, am thinking not just their physical health, but really what's going on with their mental health, social health, spiritual health. And so that's how I look at people, and that's how my brain goes to all of those places. It just doesn't go to my lab values or my tests that I do or imaging or what drugs that might be prescribed. That's such a really quite a small piece of what I do when I assess somebody on their health. And so over the years, I did primary care, but added functional medicine into my primary care practice. A few years back, right around COVID time, after COVID, which was a very stressful time to have your own business and help people in the way that you really wanted to help people. And so that was the most stressful time in life was COVID. During COVID, it was the most stressful time of my work life, I should say. And personal life was a very stressful time. And so I decided I needed to do something different. And that is when I kind of changed what I do. And I dropped insurance because insurance just wasn't working well for me. They weren't paying for the things that I really want to do and help people. And it was always a fight. And so I dropped insurance and decided for the next few years, I'm just going to go cash pay, which was very, very scary because I had staff to pay and bills to pay and rent and all that. So it was scary. But I did, and I gave up insurance. And now people come to me, and the majority of my practice is program based. So I'll put somebody into a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month program. We'll hone in on their whole health and really look at their diet and clean up their diet because food is probably the number one killer in our country right now. I have to be honest. And so changing people's diets is a really big thing. So I have a health coach that's helping me with that. We do some extensive labs. I'm into genetic testing now, which really looking at your genes and what environment you're in and how those are clashing or not clashing, and helping people to really clean up their environments especially around their genetic makeup. So I'm doing mostly that now, not primary care. In fact, I am no longer doing PAPs or breast.
You are.
I am not.
Yeah.
I am not. I figured out somewhere between 30 and 35,000 PAPs in my career. And so I thought, oh, well, that's enough. And so I put the speculums away, and here I am.
Oh, I love that.
You know, there's so many things we could talk about. So many things. I'm trying to decide where to go with this, but like, real quick, thermography is something that you offer.
Yes.
And tell the name of your business, actually.
Right. It's Joliffe Institute for Restorative Medicine and Aesthetics. And that was a hard one, but restorative medicine really, there's regenerative. I use the restorative because I really focus on the diet and healing through diet and lifestyle, that kind of thing. Regenerative is more of regeneration, which I do that as well. That's more like the PRP injections that I do, and prolozone injections, and hyperbaric chamber and that. But I do have thermography. I've been doing that for years, probably at least 15 years. I don't know when I started that, but thermography it's a risk assessment tool. And so people in the medical field, when you use the word thermography, they freak out. Like, oh my God, no, mammograms are it, and it really is not. The history goes back to what they were going to use as their standard of care, mammogram, ultrasound, or thermography. And they decided on mammogram. And a lot of that was because of the way the technology was back in the 70s when they decided this information. But it's just like everything in medicine, we tend to throw everything out when one protocol comes along, and then you forget about all these things. So thermography is a really great risk assessment tool because it looks at the function of the breast, and so it looks at cellular activity. It's measuring hot and cold spots through a far infrared camera, and it is looking at the cellular activity. So if there's inflammation going on, it will show up in the cells. It will show up on the thermography. We know breast cancer starts with inflammation years before the cancer cells even start developing. So when I do thermography, it's a really great assessment to see the risk for breast cancer. So I really teach that it's a risk for breast cancer. It's not diagnostic. And neither is a mammogram.
Right.
Mammograms are not diagnostic, by the way. Right. True diagnostic of breast cancer is biopsy. And so that's the diagnosis. And so I use that, and I use it in combination with mammogram, depending on what personal choice of the patient is.
I've had so many people asking about thermography in my office now, and you're the person I know to send them to. And I'm like, I'm just happy that people are realizing there's other options.
Yeah, and there is other options. And the information that I find on a thermogram is vitally important for women's breasts because you can turn that around. I see it. We put them on a breast health plan. If their thermography is really high risk and their mammogram is nothing, then we know that something's going on, but it's not breast cancer. So we put them on a really good plan. And most often, it's the estrogen we carry in our breasts. It's that estrogen activity from our environments that are in our breasts. So we do estrogen detoxing and get them on a really good health plan, and we can prevent breast cancer. It's probably one of the more exciting things I do when I see those things change.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think about how many people, I have a lot of people with tender breasts, and it's more now than before. Mm-hmm. I'm doing way more fascia work on the chest than I have ever had to do.
You know why?
Tell me, Rhonda. Tell me all the things.
Our environments have gotten much more toxic. And the toxins that are in our environment, they look like estrogens in our body, pesticides, things that come into our skin, and anything that gets on our skin, anything that's absorbed through our skin, anything we breathe in, anything we ingest goes in. And so many of our foods too, so many of the chemicals actually look like estrogens in the body, and so they take over the receptor sites on the cell where that estrogen is supposed to go in. These toxic, we call them xenoestrogens, there's even a name for it, and they go in and they're toxic to the breast because estrogen accumulates in the breast anyway. And so now you have these toxic estrogens. And so when you clear that out, the breast tenderness will go away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Detoxing is really huge in my practice. Everybody gets detoxing.
It's such a general term, though.
I know. It's scary for some.
Yes.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And even, I see a lot of poo-pooing about, the body naturally detoxes. What do you think about that?
Oh, gosh. Well,
It sure tries.
27 years of practice in detoxing, I see the changes. So you can do, if you're eating McDonald's for breakfast every day and, junk food all day long, if you only get rid of that, you're detoxing because you're not putting that stuff in your body anymore. If you get rid of your makeups and your hair products and all of the stuff that has toxins in them, you're detoxing. So that's a form of detoxing without doing anything else but getting rid of the junk. That's a form of detoxing. Drinking clean water. Our water is even toxic. In Bismarck, our water is very high in chloramine. They switch that over, and that's toxic to especially the thyroid gland. And so just cleaning up your water, cleaning up your environment is actually detoxing. So the work is that we need to do is think of it as just cleaning up your environment. And then I use it with foods, putting good foods in your body. And there's certain foods that are more detoxing than others. So greens and fruits, vegetables, greens, and getting rid of those toxic foods like dairy, gluten, sugar. These are all toxic to our bodies. And so when you get rid of that, you're detoxing just doing that.
Because the body does naturally detox.
Exactly.
It just can't when it's laden with all these things,
right? Right. It will naturally take care of itself if you give it the right thing.
Right environment.
And it's so funny because early back in the 90s, I just had a sense that our bodies are meant to heal. Yeah. They really are. If you really understand pathophysiology, we are designed chemically so well to heal. That is what our bodies are designed for. If you give it the right things, it will take care of itself. Mm-hmm. And I've just always believed in that. And it's just, and it's true. The problem is our environments, what we've created in the environment through our food, our water, our air, is clothing, plastics around, everything, paints, everything is so toxic. Our bodies weren't designed to take all that in. And then some people say, well, why are some people in the same environment do the same thing and one is sick and the other's not? That's where your genes come in. And that's where I do genetic testing because you might have a methylation problem or a detoxification problem. That's your genetic makeup. So you're going to get sick. You're the one that's going to get the fibromyalgia or the chronic fatigue or something like that because your body doesn't naturally work as good as the next person. And so those people, we have to really assist them. And that's why I like doing genetic testing because there's a lot of good nutritional supplements to help with methylation, to help with detoxification. So what's coming in, we can support the body to rid them of those toxins so they don't get sick.
Do you think that's also where the mind and the soul come into play too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our brains are filled with toxins, and there's even toxic emotions. Absolutely. And toxic emotional our relationships, that create toxins in our body.
And the relationship we have with ourselves.
Oh, gosh, that's probably most toxic.
Right.
With women. Oh, my God.
I think, Josie and I talk about this often, like there's the same thing. You have two people, same environment. One of them tells themselves they're not sick. The other one tells themselves they are sick. That makes a difference too. How you speak to yourself and what your beliefs are, right? And how you care for your soul and your, what you feed your mind. I mean, all those things I think make a difference too. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they affect the cells. Emotions affect our cells and our cellular function. And it's all about the cell. We have billions of cells in our body, but if you just look at one singular cell, they all talk to each other and communicate with each other. But at the cellular level, what's happening and emotions affect that. cellular level.
Right.
Yes, that's why we understand PTSD, post-traumatic stress. They go through a traumatic event as a child, and that gets in the cells, and that's why they don't heal, because those emotions are literally in their cells, and they keep coming up and keep coming up. That's PTSD.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have coaching for that too? Or
That is an area that I am really looking at delving into and probably getting some, that's a missing link. I have to say I've got so many things going in the right direction, but the missing link is that whole PTSD. I'm aware of it. I'm very easily assess it. I'm not clinically the person to really work through that and help with that, but I do refer for that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Counseling. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you do? We've talked about how you take care of everyone else. Can you talk a little bit of how you take care of yourself?
I have to say, God, that's such a good question. So
loaded question.
It is loaded. So,
one thing in one.
Well, here's the deal. I do tell people, get that massage, exercise, do all that. I eat well. I do exercise, but I have to say my number one is my mindset.
Yeah.
It's my mind that really controls how I handle things. I am able to just calm my mind and focus, and it's my mindset. I was gifted, I'm thinking through my parents with a very optimistic outlook in life. And so I'm a very big optimist. I always have been. And then I was also gifted with a really strong faith. And so my faith is so strong that I'm not really fearful of things. And this is funny because I'm building a house and talking about a security system, and we're going over what I need. And my daughter-in-law is like, well, are you really afraid? I said, I've never been afraid of anything, and so no, I'm not afraid. I'm just not afraid. So that is probably because I'm not afraid. That can get you into trouble too, because you should be afraid of a few things. But I'm not. Yeah. So it's my mindset, my faith, I think, is my stronger piece of taking care of myself. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we dive into the food and exercise so much. And if we're not doing that, we're not well.
Right.
And I just don't, that's changed for me too.
I know. And I know people that exercise perfectly and they eat perfectly. And I kid you not, they do. They don't put a morsel of anything in, but their mindsets just aren't clear. Their faith is not there. So I have to say those, at this age, I can say that clearly. I used to want to say, oh gosh, I should exercise more. Maybe I shouldn't drink coffee every morning or whatever. And I don't, but whatever. Yeah. I know, right. Like feeling bad about anything. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The older that I get, I think that the mind has so much, and the soul, the mind, the soul. I mean, it's a balance of all of the things. So I like when you initially said mind, body, soul, or did you said and spirit? Or
spirit, it used to be spirit. Now we say soul more.
Yeah. Right.
Years ago it was spirit, and then someone came along and said, no, it should be soul. So mind, body, soul. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Terminology has changed so much with everything over my time frame.
Are you careful? Do you see things in your practice now that you have to be careful of how you phrase things? And
not as much anymore. But when I used to use the word holistic, that would kind of freak some people out. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my gosh, I was challenged in the early years, back in the late 90s. When I used that mind, body, spirit, I was challenged by Christians, in fact, on, okay, what does that spirit mean? And that's foo-foo, or that's new age. I was challenged that I was doing new age and whatever new age was, because what I was doing was very, very old age. Old age. I was like, a new age to me is our medical community, and using drugs for everything is new age to me. Yeah. Old age to me is, looking at essential oils, doing some deep breathing, doing these mindful things that they used to do before they had all the drugs. So I call what I do old age.
Absolutely.
And the new age to me is using chemicals and medication for absolutely every symptom.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, because that's been since about the 50s.
That grew into that as the
So that's newer age.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. Okay, so how you care for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you said your positive mindset, but those were things that you were gifted with. But so, what else do you do? I mean, you say you love to spend time with your grandchildren.
Oh yeah, that's like my best. That's my best calming, like in the moment, is with those kids. It's just like I can't get enough of the baby now, and so that is definitely what I do. I do red light therapy. That's very calming to me. It's just red light therapy works on the cells and it calms the cells. It takes down inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
I do that pretty consistently. I exercise. I like to bike. I like to walk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing Pilates now.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love. I absolutely love Pilates. That is like the breathing and it's just the whole stretching. That is the best exercise at my age that I find instead of high aerobic joint hurting exercising.
Yeah.
This has been the best exercise for me at my age.
Yeah.
I do tell younger people to add that back in though, even because young people tend to think cardiovascular, the harder the better and stuff, and yet they're so inflexible. So flexibility is a biggie. Balance is a biggie at my age. And so I like to do flexibility and balancing things just as much as cardiovascular.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to wait until it's off.
No.
And then you have to come back from it. We all know how hard that is to come back from it.
It is.
Yeah. As we work with a lot of dementia patients in the office now, and it's balance is like a problem.
It is.
It's all the cerebellar issues and things.
Yeah.
Working on that beforehand. And Pilates is great with that.
It's great.
Yoga,
it's so good. There's so many different balancing things with that. You don't even know you're doing it. Yeah. And I do daily quiet time. I like quiet time, in prayer. I just really like quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I love music.
Mm-hmm.
And so quiet and music to me go hand in hand. Sometimes it's silent and sometimes it's music, but that's quiet to me because I play calming music. And so that is, that's I feel my day.
Yeah, you do. You do fill your day. Do you read?
So, yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts? Like, how do you fill your mind?
So, I do read and I do listen to podcasts. Unfortunately, that's all been medical my whole life. Everything I pick up is medical. All podcasts I listen to is medical. And, I see people with these fiction books and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have never read a fiction book. Okay. Truth told. Truth told. So if
we're like dead silent.
I know. I have never read it. So if you looked at my bookcase, they're all medical. They're on healing. They're on everything that is related to medical and healing is my books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my newest book is The War on Ivermectin because I heard Pierre Corey speak in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago and I got his book and signed it. And, so these are the kind of books I have. Because I go to conferences and I buy the book. I buy the book. Yeah, I like learning. I'm really into learning. I still am.
Yeah.
I love to learn. And so that is where, when I read, I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do find it calming to learn something in a way too. Like, or something in my brain kind of shifts and it's like, okay, like those centers or something. I don't know.
Well, it's almost like an addiction high. Okay, let's call it what it is.
Enneagram I have going on here. I don't know. That's stuff.
I know. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's good. Coach me. It's good.
I'm the same way, and all my books are that way too. They didn't used to be. That's a shift over the years. I used to be, but don't you ever come to a point where you just you said music, and sometimes I just want the, I don't want to think. So I'll turn on some stupid TV show or, But yeah, reading the books is a little harder, like the fiction books. But is there a favorite TV show that you have that you just watch just for brainless activity?
So, my husband passed last November. It'll be a year on November 5th. I am not a big TV person, and I didn't realize how much I wasn't until he passed. And I didn't turn my TV on until February.
Yeah.
I literally don't watch TV. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. Once in a while, someone will tell me, start this good Netflix thing. And then I'll watch a Netflix series and I'll just watch it in 1 week, every night. And I lose sleep. And then I'm like, so then I don't like even doing that because I know I'm going to lose sleep because I'm like, oh gosh, I have to see the next show. And then I stay up till 3 a.m. and I literally can. Yeah. And it's like, that's not good for me. And so I try, I'm not a big TV watcher. I will be honest. I'm building a new home, and if I didn't have to put a TV in there, I wouldn't. But my family would come over and have a TV. So I need one for my grandkids and my boys for their football games.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know.
Have the football game.
So, yeah.
Because Nick was a Vikings fan.
He was a huge Vikings fan, and they lost last night, and I'm really sad about that.
Well, it had to happen.
Their first loss.
It
was their second, right?
It was their second loss. And it was just kind of an ugly loss, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wearing my purple.
Yeah. Good. And so, I struggle with bringing this up because I'm glad you brought Nick up, because it's like, is it hard to not make that sort of your identity sometimes?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, because it had to have been for so many years, and people people care about you and Nick, and they just want to know how you guys are. But it's like, I'm sure that was just everything for a while.
Well, this could be a whole show in itself. I think I need to work with grief. People, because of what I've experienced, I have to say, people say to me, oh, I can't imagine. And my answer is no, you can't, because it is worse than you ever imagined. And so, it's tough. It's tough. And it was my identity. I was Nick's wife, and for, 34 years, and we dated 6 years before that. I mean, it was just short of 40 years we were together. And so it is tough. And like I say, we could do a whole show on grief, because I have to find myself. Seriously, like the TV thing was like, oh my gosh, I knew I didn't like TV, but I didn't know how much I didn't. Our TV was on all the time. And I sat next to him in his chair, and we watched sports mostly, and some movies, and that's what we did together. And then it just wasn't a priority. Yeah. And by the way, I do watch sports probably the most on TV as I watch sports. Yeah. Because I love sports of all kinds. But yeah, so the whole identity, I have a book that has been very helpful for me getting to the other side of grief. Okay. And it's assignments in there. And it's really good for me to have those assignments, because some of the assignments I don't think I would have done on my own. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if I would have gone to grief counseling or whatever, they would have told me these things, but I just probably didn't take the time, whatever. But one of the things is, you either move out of your house if you've lived in it for a long time. And we lived in our home for 23 years, and we raised our boys there. And our home was our home. It wasn't the house. Yeah. And that move is, just cleaning that out. And then I'm building. And so the book says to either change your whole house that you live in, change it up to make it your own, or move. And so I'm moving to a place that's just mine. And that is a whole different identity to me, because I've always shared everything with him. And in fact, he liked to decorate. And you know what? It got to be one of those where I didn't like his decorating. I would have done it differently, but I didn't care much, because I'm so laid back, so I didn't care. So now I'm finding my new home is nothing in there probably he would have picked. He would have picked anything that I'm picking out now. And it's so funny. And it's like, I'm making these decisions that I'm like, oh my gosh, making decisions that I never made before. It is a whole different reality for me. Yeah. It is. And the real reality is, you don't have a choice. You have to move on.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You don't want to. My kids would rather have their dad back.
Yeah.
I would rather have them,
Yeah.
but we don't.
Right.
And we have to move on. And we are, and we're doing the best that we can. It's coming up on a year. It seems like yesterday. And in 7 years, it's going to seem like a year. I just know this. He's just such a big piece of who I am.
Yeah.
But he's with me all the time.
Yeah.
I have someone else I can tap into and get some advice from because he'll send me a message. And it's always the best advice, as he did. I'm listening to him more now than I did when he was here. Because he always had advice. I didn't always listen. I had to remind my boys of that because they were telling me to do things. I said, okay, love this, that you guys are helping me out and giving me advice, but keep in mind, I didn't always listen to your dad either.
Yeah.
My son is like, you're right. Because I grew up in our home.
Yeah.
So, I'm a whole different person now, and I'm trying to find that. And it is different at this age to try and find that. Yeah.
I love the word journey because that's really what life is, right? So
it's a journey.
So it is a journey, and a year later, that's interesting. A year.
Yeah, it's been a year, and like I say, it seems like yesterday, and yet it seems like forever ago. It's so hard to explain, and I think that's about heaven. There's no time frame, and that's what I feel like I've kind of been in that period of time where there is no time. This past year, like I say, it seems like yesterday, and it seems like 10 years.
Right.
It's like the time, I don't know, it's hard to explain. There's so much about it that's hard to explain. And unless you've gone through it, you don't really get it. Yeah, it's like having a baby. Yeah. Unless you've had a baby, you really don't know that experience. Right. Unless you've lost your spouse, you don't know that experience until you've done it. Right. I have a lot more compassion for anybody that's lost its spouse. That's for sure. And I'm a compassionate person. Yes. I always cared about people, but now it's this deeper, oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're going through. When someone gets diagnosed with cancer now, it's just like, it's just this heavy because I know what their next few years are. Right. I know what their journey is. Right. And because I've lived it, for 6 years. And it was fun. Yeah. But learned a lot.
He had cancer for 6 years.
6 years. Okay. Yeah, he had a very aggressive cancer, stage 4 esophageal, and 6 months to a year was about the time frame, and he lived for 6. So we were fortunate and grateful, and had a lot of blessings along the way. Oh man. Yeah. Well,
thanks for sharing that. I think that's going to be very helpful for people. I'm just like, kind of.
Well, if you ever want to talk about grief, I'm getting really good at studying I'm studying grief right now, to be honest. I've been studying grief this year. So the books I've read this year are on grief. Yeah, I do have to say, and it's been very good.
If that might be part of your journey, is to, because having watched it a little bit from the outside looking in, and seeing it, you handled it so gracefully. Mm-hmm. And so I think you do have a lot to offer to other people and coming out on the other side of it. And your whole family handled it with so much grace and
Joliffe way.
And Nick too.
I don't have their genetics, but you live the Joliffe way. You are a Joliffe. Yeah. We're tough.
Yeah. And Nick too,
So I did.
You have a lot to offer to people who are struggling with those things, if that's something that you choose to do. But
it might be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, again, we talk about how you affect people even just in your circle. So I would imagine when you see people, that it probably does come up in some of their visits with you. People who have lost their spouses.
Absolutely.
So you can affect people in that way.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had people that have come in that have lost their spouses. So it's this year. Yeah. And so it's been, a whole different dynamic of how the conversations and how my understanding, my understanding of it is so different.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It seems like, I don't know if that's everybody, but what you go through, you want to help people through. For some reason, it's like, it just like comes out that way. Or if that's just our brains, maybe not everyone feels. It's, I went through gut protocol or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah,
gut
right,
issues. And it's like,
exactly.
I want everyone to have better gut issues, right? Like we just have maybe the empathy in it.
Absolutely. When you've gone through that journey, you know what it feels like. You know every little step they're going through. And yeah, it is. It's very interesting. And I've had a lot of ladies that are widows reach out to me, you know, and give me a book or send me a card or just, you know, people that I didn't even know that well. Seriously, they just, you know, have that compassion because they know. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
If you could say, let's pretend there's a million people listening to us today.
Yeah, I like that. Across the whole globe.
What's one word of wisdom that you could impart upon them?
Get grounded in your faith. It's my biggest. My faith is my biggest. It's what keeps me going. It's what gets me up in the morning. It's what helped us through the whole cancer journey for 6 years. It's what's helping me through this grief. If I didn't have my faith, I don't know where I'd be. Seriously. That is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Get grounded in your faith.
Yes. And it shines through on you too.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. Well, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end our conversation today.
Because I could talk forever, you know.
Well, so I was just thinking, like, we should have booked our couple parts.
We'll come back and maybe we'll process this and learn something, and we'll like dive into every piece you did because they were so big.
So many things we could talk about, but thank you so much for joining us again, Rhonda, Joliffe.
Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was fun. And we'll do it again. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.